You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
And now a word from our sponsor, the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. As a listener of this podcast, you're probably at least marginally interested in data, especially about all the different ways that it shapes our world. So I want to recommend the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. This is a forward-thinking show brought to you by the folks at Collibra. They are the leaders in data intelligence. You're going to hear firsthand from all sorts of people, industry titans, innovators, executives from some of the largest companies as they dive into the hottest topics in data. You're going to get insights into everything from popular things such as AI governance and data sharing down to more nuanced questions like how do we ensure data readability at a global scale? So, while data may be shaping our world, Data Citizens Dialogue is shaping the conversation. I want to encourage you to follow Data Citizens Dialogue on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out. We thank Data Citizens Dialogue for sponsoring our show. On Election Day, U.S. officials express confidence. A Virginia company is charged with violating U.S. export restrictions on technology bound for Russia. Backing up your Gmail, Google mandates MFA and claims an AI-powered vulnerability detection breakthrough. Schneider Electric investigates a cyber attack on its internal project tracking platform. A Canadian man suspected in the Snowflake-related data breaches has been arrested. On our Threat Vector segment, David Moulton sits down with Christopher Scott from Unit 42 to explore the essentials of crisis leadership and management. And I spy air fry? It's Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here. It is great to have you with us, as always. It is Election Day here in the U.S., and officials from agencies like CISA, Cyber Command, and the FBI are tackling a surge of influence operations and disinformation campaigns from foreign adversaries, especially Russia and China. Former Cyber Command leader Paul Nakasone notes in an exclusive interview with The Record that there's been significant progress since 2016 in how the U.S. manages election security, citing a series of safe and secure elections enabled by a coordinated defense strategy. This year, officials like CISA Director Jen Easterly emphasized that while minor incidents like low-level DDoS attacks and ballot box vandalism have occurred, there's no evidence of threats that could alter election outcomes. Russia remains the most active threat, deploying false narratives and fabricated videos to sow distrust and potentially incite violence, particularly in swing states. China's Salt Typhoon has also targeted U.S. telecommunications networks for intelligence collection, though officials believe this poses no immediate risk to election security. Meanwhile, CISA and the FBI have debunked misleading videos on social media, urging the public to rely on verified sources for election information. The unified efforts across federal agencies, international partners, and AI-powered defenses are credited with enhancing election security. Nakasone sees the current transparency about disinformation campaigns as a success, reflecting a matured response framework. CISA plans to release a post-election assessment to confirm whether any foreign actors attempted to influence the outcome, marking a proactive approach in the face of evolving threats. In Virginia, 2 executives and their company are facing serious charges for allegedly violating U.S. export restrictions on technology bound for Russia. Eloview International, based in Virginia, and its top leaders, Oleg Nayandin and Vitaly Borisenko, are accused of creating an elaborate scheme to sidestep U.S. export controls. According to federal prosecutors, after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Eloview's leaders funneled restricted U.S. goods through countries like Turkey, Finland, and Kazakhstan, disguising their true destination, Russian state-linked entities. Let's break down these 3 alleged schemes. In one case, Eloview routed about $1.5 million worth of telecommunication gear through a fake Turkish entity, knowing it would end up supporting Russian government agencies, including the Federal Security Service, or FSB. In Finland, they allegedly used Russian postal tracking to sneak nearly $3.5 million in goods, including high-priority components found in Russian suicide drones, right to Russian customers. And through Kazakhstan, they moved an additional $1.5 million in dual-use items. If found guilty, the men could each face up to 20 years in prison. This case falls under the Department of Justice's Disruptive Technology Strike Force and Task Force Klepto Capture, initiatives that work together to prevent unauthorized transfers of critical U.S. technology to hostile states. It's a high-profile reminder that U.S. export laws are under close watch, especially with wartime restrictions in place. With cyberattacks on Gmail accounts rising, Google has introduced advanced security measures to protect users. Yet, session cookie theft and two-factor authentication bypasses remain threats for Gmail's 2.5 billion active users. Security experts warn that although 2FA is essential, attackers have become adept at circumventing it, using tools to steal session cookies and evade application-bound encryption. An article in Forbes describes one proactive measure to mitigate the impact of an attack: opening a second Gmail account and forwarding all messages from your primary account to it. While this won't prevent a hack, it offers a backup to store critical information, providing an accessible fallback if the primary account is compromised. Cybersecurity specialists recommend enabling all available protections, including secure passkey sign-ins and Chrome's safe browsing features. A recent user experience shared on Reddit illustrates the value of such backup accounts, as recovering from a Gmail breach can be challenging. Ultimately, a second account offers a simple yet effective safety net for irreplaceable data. Google Cloud is strengthening security by making multi-factor authentication mandatory for all users by the end of 2025. The phased rollout begins this month, initially encouraging MFA adoption through resources and reminders. By early 2025, MFA will be required for password-based logins on Google Cloud platforms, and by the end of the year, all federated users will need MFA, with options for integration with primary identity providers. This transition builds on Google's long history with MFA, starting with the 2011 launch of two-step verification and the introduction of phishing-resistant security keys in 2014. Google's decision is driven by data showing that MFA significantly reduces hacking risks, especially in cloud environments. With phishing and stolen credentials being major threats, this mandatory MFA aims to provide stronger protection for Google Cloud's sensitive deployments. And staying with Google for just a little while longer, Google recently claimed a breakthrough in AI-powered cybersecurity with its tool Big Sleep, marking the first time an AI has uncovered an exploitable memory safety vulnerability in live code, specifically a stack buffer underflow in SQLite. Developed in collaboration between Google's Project Zero and DeepMind, Big Sleep identified the flaw, allowing it to be fixed before the affected code's official release. The flaw, found in early October, involved an array index error that could lead to a crash or potential code execution. Traditional fuzzing techniques hadn't detected the bug, but Google's LLM managed to locate it by analyzing recent commits in SQLite's repository. While Big Sleep is still experimental, Google views it as a promising tool for uncovering elusive bugs missed by standard methods. This AI-driven discovery underscores the growing role of machine learning in finding complex real-world vulnerabilities, complementing tools like Project AI's Vuln Hunter, which specializes in identifying zero days in Python. Schneider Electric confirmed it's investigating a cyberattack on its internal project tracking platform following a breach claim by the emerging Hellcat ransomware group. Schneider, a global leader in energy management and automation, activated its incident response team after Hellcat claimed access to the company's Atlassian Jira system, allegedly stealing around 40 gigabytes of project and user data. The group is demanding $125,000 in ransom to avoid leaking the data. This attack follows a ransomware incident in January that affected Schneider's sustainability division systems. Hellcat, which surfaced recently, has also claimed responsibility for an attack on Jordan's Ministry of Education, though this is unverified. The FBI notes that increased ransomware disruptions this year have likely driven ransomware operators into smaller groups, possibly fueling attacks like this one. Schneider continues to investigate, prioritizing containment and security measures. A Canadian man suspected of leading this year's wave of Snowflake-related data breaches, linked to over 165 instances, has been arrested. Known online as Judish and Waifu, the hacker is allegedly responsible for breaches impacting AT&T, Ticketmaster, and LendingTree, among others. The arrest follows a coordinated investigation involving cybersecurity researchers and international law enforcement who'd been gathering intelligence on the suspect for months. Sources identified the hacker as Connor Mocha, also known as Alexander Mocha. The Canadian Department of Justice confirmed his arrest on October 30th at the request of the United States. Mocha reportedly communicated with 404 Media in mid-October, expressing fears of imminent arrest. He claimed to have destroyed evidence, suggesting his activities might be hard to prosecute fully. The hacking group he's associated with, known as The Calm, is a collective of young hackers behind high-profile cybercrimes worldwide. Coming up after the break, in our Threat Vector segment, David Moulton sits down with Christopher Scott to discuss the essentials of crisis leadership. Stay with us. David Moulton is host of the Threat Vector podcast right here on the N2K CyberWire network. He recently sat down with Christopher Scott, managing partner at Unit 42 by Palo Alto Networks. They discuss the essentials of crisis leadership and management in cybersecurity.
These attackers know that if they can cause true business disruption, an organization's ability to operate with their partner ecosystem, with the vendors that are so critical to doing their job, and then to provide services to their clients, like on the healthcare front, we're seeing an impact in billions of dollars, in some cases really impacting GDP of particular countries throughout the world because of the downtime that's being caused by just the level of these attacks.
Welcome to Threat Vector, the Palo Alto Networks podcast, where we discuss pressing cybersecurity threats and resilience and uncover insights into the latest industry trends. I'm your host, David Moulton, Director of Thought Leadership. Today, I'm speaking with Wendy Whitmore, the Senior Vice President at Palo Alto Networks, who leads the Unit 42 team. With an impressive background spanning government, academia, and industry, Wendy is a recognized leader in national security and cybersecurity. She has contributed her expertise to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Safety Review Board, served on advisory boards for Duke University and the University of San Diego, and actively engages with organizations like the World Economic Forum. Throughout her career, from serving as a special agent with the U.S. Air Force to leading global cybersecurity teams at Mandiant, CrowdStrike, and IBM, Wendy has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to safeguarding organizations and individuals from cyber threats. Today, we're discussing the increasing speed and sophistication of cyber attacks. As cyber threats continue to evolve, how can organizations keep pace with attackers and adapt their strategies? This is critical for organizations' operational resilience and for the national and global security landscape. Here's our conversation. Wendy, welcome back to Threat Vector. It's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
First, David, great to be here. Excited to be on Threat Vector. Love the show, love listening to it. So happy to talk to you again today.
In your last appearance, we talked about the evolving speed and sophistication of cyber attacks and how AI is becoming a game changer for attackers. I remember you specifically pointed out how AI is enabling attackers to move faster, reducing language barriers, and increasing the effectiveness of social engineering tactics. That conversation really opened a lot of eyes in our audience. Before we dive into today's discussion, I'd love to revisit your work shaping the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. You're involved with academic institutions like Duke University and the University of San Diego, helping guide future leaders in this field. Could you share a bit more about your passion for mentoring these students and what skills you think are most critical for their success in cybersecurity?
Well, I think it's no surprise that there's a massive shortage of jobs that are filled today, right? So we don't have enough skills in cybersecurity to fill the jobs we have today, and those jobs are likely only to continue to grow. So the more great students we can get involved at an early age, the better. One of the areas we want to continue to focus on is just awareness. So making sure that students, not just starting at the high school level, but certainly before that, are aware that cybersecurity is a great field, that there's some really cool jobs out here that are challenging, and that those students are then going into the college programs at the undergraduate level, and then continuing that right at the graduate level to really hone those skills and then have great opportunities for really fulfilling work moving forward. So the more that all of us can do to get great students in the pipeline, the better.
My daughter came into my office about a year ago and told me, "Dad, I want to go into the FBI." And she goes, "I like helping people and I like solving puzzles." And had an opportunity to visit the San Antonio FBI office and visited with the CART team there. Cool. And that ended up being that awareness that this career exists and that this is a really valuable place to spend your time and your talent and go crack some tough problems. And I love it that you're an advisor to students. Those students are really, really fortunate to have such a great mentor in you. So today we're going to get into adapting to some new attack vectors, and we've got a lot to cover. So let's jump into our conversation. Wendy, we've seen a huge surge in high-profile attacks targeting a lot of different sectors. Could you share some insights into the most impactful cybersecurity attacks in recent years and what made them so damaging?
So over the last year to let's say year and a half, what we've seen is just a huge increase in the scale of the attacks, in the sophistication of attackers, and certainly the speed with which they're operating. When I'm mentioning sophistication of attackers, I'm going to focus particularly right now on cyber criminals and just their ability to really understand how businesses operate and how they work together, what that organizational landscape looks like in terms of when contracts are awarded, how an organization onboards a vendor, how they offboard a vendor, and then what results in that are times where there may be more vulnerabilities based on access to credentials, access to certain providers. Well, that said, I want to really specifically talk about the last 6 months. And what we have seen now more than ever is disruption of business and very specific intentional disruption to the end customer and the end consumer. And it really seems to be that if you can bring pain to the end consumer, the attackers can leverage the end consumer to put pressure on businesses to make decisions faster. And what the attackers are hoping is that that ultimately commands a higher payout in terms and in the form of a ransom. We have seen the payments of ransoms, I think, become an even hotter topic. At this point, just in 2023 alone, Chain Analysis provided a a record $1 billion in ransomware payments that were made in that year alone. And if you think about that, that's only really what's recorded and what's known. That number is actually likely to be a good amount higher. And the reality is that these attackers are taking that money, not only paying themselves and their teams and all of the delegate systems they have set up, but they're also leveraging that to invest in future R&D and making sure that their capabilities continue to grow and become even more advanced. And I think that's pretty concerning.
How has the rise of automated and AI attacks changed the nature of the threat landscape? And as a defender, can we keep up?
I think there's good news. The defense can keep up. As you mentioned in the earlier commentary of cat and mouse game, it's going to continue to be that sixth scenario that we live in. And I think the reality of doing business, if you have business connected to any kind of online environment. But I think as we think about how do we really combat this threat as it continues to evolve, there's more focus than there ever has been on real-time visibility. So creating the opportunity for your organization to detect at every step of an attack, to make sure you've got logging and monitoring at each of those steps so you can go back and quickly identify what action occurred, who was responsible for it. And then really being able to leverage AI at every step of the way, right? So integration into your ability to defend at the network level, at the cloud level, at the endpoint, and to coalesce all that information as quickly and rapidly as possible is absolutely going to be key. The faster then that we can create kind of that embedded sequence all together is going to mean your SOC's able to detect threats in real time. They're going to then be able to reduce the volume of attacks and focus on those with which are going to cause the most destruction or disruption, and be able to prevent those singular events from becoming a widespread organizational-wide compromise.
Thanks for listening to this segment of the Threat Vector Podcast. If you want to hear the whole conversation, you can find the show in your podcast player. Just search for Threat Vector by Palo Alto Networks. Each week, I interview leaders from across our industry and from Palo Alto Networks to get their insights on cybersecurity, the threat landscape, and the constant changes we face. See you there.
And don't forget to check out the complete Threat Vector podcast. You can find that right here on the N2K CyberWire network or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And finally, in today's age of smart everything, even air fryers seem to have developed a taste for data. UK consumer group Which discovered that some smart air fryers are a little too curious. These fryers, by brands like Xiaomi, request microphone permissions through their apps, and Xiaomi's fryer was found sharing personal data with Facebook, TikTok, and even servers in China. The consumer group also flagged smart speakers loaded with trackers from Google, Facebook, and Urban Airship, along with watches asking for risky permissions like location and audio access. The UK's Information Commissioner's Office voiced concerns, stating that many devices flunk both data protection standards and consumer expectations. It's crafting new guidance for spring 2025 to make smart tech makers step up their privacy game. Meanwhile, device manufacturers assure us they're all about privacy. Still, before your air fryer becomes a spy, be careful you're not cooking up some data leaks. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K CyberWire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Park. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.